So I've done a similar video on this topic before, with the majority of the feedback being positive, but also with more backlash than I usually get on my videos, maybe because money is somewhat a sensitive subject and I struck a nerve on a few people. But I'm gonna try to address some of the criticism of that and shed some light on the fact that becoming wealthy might seem far off for most people right now, but in fact it's a lot more doable than you might think, and I'll explain what I mean in this video. So let me throw some encouraging stats at you while I debunk some of the myths people believe to be true. So some of the more recurring comments I got on my last video on this topic was, you have to be born rich to become rich, otherwise it's basically impossible. Well, according to Thomas J. Stanley, who wrote The Millionaire Next Door, 80% of the American millionaires are first generation rich, meaning the vast majority were in fact not born rich. And here's something that might be even more interesting about this. Most of these millionaires came from parents who couldn't or wouldn't supply them any financial support whatsoever. They were pretty much forced to learn to accumulate wealth on their own from a pretty young age. And let me break out another interesting fact for you. Kids who got the most financial support from parents early in life were the ones who accumulated the least wealth later on in life. But of course, as with everything, there are exceptions to this. And some people also seem to think that if you're a millionaire, then you're a retired douche dick gloating your wealth in people's faces for fun. But it turns out that only about 20% of millionaires are retired, meaning 80% of them are working, some even after they turn 65, often keeping their douchebaggery to a minimum, and most of them seem to really enjoy working with what they do. And another myth is that you have to own a business in order to become a millionaire. Although this will certainly help if you can run it successfully, but it's not necessary. 50% of millionaires do not own a business. And although these numbers apply to people in the US, which by the way most of the viewers of my videos are from, chances are that it's similar in your country if you live in a somewhat capitalist society. And this all means that if you're not born rich or relatively young and don't own a business, you are still in the run to become pretty wealthy. And I'm gonna explain the principles behind that. And it's interesting how most non-millionaires, myself included some time ago, perceives what actual millionaires are like with money without actually knowing what they are like with money. That luxury lifestyle where excessive spending seems to be limitless. Now that might be a fair judgment based on how wealthy people are portrayed by the media, as lavish and ridiculous behavior makes for a more entertaining show. But the truth about wealthy people is really not as entertaining as media wants you to believe. Because millionaires often don't spend as much money on cars and living and accessories than people who earn a lot less money do. They are incredibly frugal and avoid spending money unless they have to or it's something of lasting value. And bear in mind now, I'm talking about actual millionaires and not high earning potential millionaires. And this was highlighted in the book The Millionaire Next Door, where they interviewed and did extensive profiling on a huge number of millionaires to determine who a typical millionaire is and what they do with their money. And when they first began studying how people became wealthy, they started by surveying people in the high-end upscale neighborhoods across the US, only to discover that most of these people in the big houses with fast cars were in fact not wealthy at all. They then discovered that the people who has a great deal of wealth don't live in the upscale neighborhoods, but instead lived happily in the modest lower middle class neighborhoods. And now get ready for this one. A lot of people who earn high incomes are not actually wealthy, though it might appear so. This is because they tend to fail in accumulating any lasting wealth. You might consider a person wealthy who earns $300,000 a year, drives a Porsche and wears a Rolex along tailored fitted suits on a daily basis. However, if this person were to lose his job or something would happen to him making him unable to work, he would be dead in the water within a few weeks, being forced to sell his possessions. His whole life is dependent on that next paycheck, making him stuck in the infamous rat race. Perhaps a little bit more luxurious rat race, but make no mistake, they are still stuck in that rat race and are in fact not wealthy. And this is the result of a hyper-consuming lifestyle where they spend their money in a ratio pretty much 1-to-1 with their income. Not a good idea if you want to accumulate any lasting wealth, but it's unfortunately very common. And here's where the douche dick tag can sometimes be justified, because these people are more concerned with displaying high status and wealth rather than actually having it. And now before you comment, what's the point of being rich if I can't spend money? Let me say this, actually that's a damn good question. I'm only paraphrasing what great people have concluded a long time ago, but of course you should spend money and increase your standard of living, but just don't spend excessively or you might also end up dead in the water. Now I'm gonna tell you some of the most common denominators among first generation millionaires that has guided them to become financially independent. They live well below their means and are sure to have a good deal of their income set aside for saving and investing. They spend a great deal of time and energy in allocating that earned money, making sure they invest it wisely. And they believe that financial independence is more important than displaying social status. They don't give a shit if they wear the coolest, overly expensive hoodies, drive the newest car, or have a 2-balcony house, as long as their plan on financial independence is intact. Also known as they are keeping douchebaggery to a minimum. And that pretty much sums it up. Thanks for watching. I also want to thank this video sponsor, myself. Yeah. Check out this awesome channel, Primed, and subscribe to the channel for very cool and great videos in the future. Goodbye.